This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
I think involvement comes out of mistakes, struggle, and not so comfortable things happening to you. But I'm at the best place I've ever been in life. Went for a joyride down the devil's highway, my eternal soul hanging by a thread. I was determined that the world was turning my way. Wound up beside the road, left for dead. Now I'm falling, I'm falling, feeling so low. All I wanna do is go back home.
Well, you're in the right place, but you're listening to my good friend Dennis Quaid singing Fallin'. He's joining us today. He is an Emmy and Golden Globe nominee, best known for a lot of different roles: The Rookie, The Day After Tomorrow, The Parent Trap, and currently, Dennis portrays the 40th President of the United States in the biopic Reagan. Man, let me tell you, they could not have cast that better. It's produced by Mark Joseph. It's directed by Sean McNamara. Reagan is out in theaters August 30th. You have got to check this out. He's not playing a role, he's channeling it. Dennis said playing Ronald Reagan was one of the greatest honors of his life and was inspired by the many parallels between each of their lives. In addition to acting, Dennis, as you just saw, is also a musician, releasing multiple albums, and he's going to tell us all about his highly personal songs from his inspirational album, Fallin', a gospel record for sinners. Good to see you again, man.
Good to see you, Phil. Last time we saw each other, I think, was the golf course.
It was the golf course, and I think you drove about 100 yards past me.
I was probably 100 yards to the left as well.
Yeah, and I was 150 to the right, but you played well, actually, so you were very patient.
Yeah, that was back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. So you still playing?
Yes, only once a day, though.
Yeah, only once a day. But you play fast.
Yeah. I turn everything into an aerobic activity.
Yeah, well, you're hyper. You're whack, go, whack, go,
I wouldn't call
whack,
it
go.
hyper. I'm just like super focused.
Yeah, he's hyper. I don't care what he says. So how you been, man?
I've been really good. Actually, I think I would qualify this as the best period of my life.
Yeah?
Tell you the truth. Yeah.
You seem very happy. You seem very peaceful. It's good to see. You've moved to Nashville.
Yes, moved to Nashville. My wife and I, Laura, moved there about 4 years ago, and I just love living there. And, my grandfather actually left the Nashville area when he was 3 years old and went to Texas in a covered wagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I still got cousins back there. And it's a great place because of the people, and it's easy to make friends and have great friends there.
Yeah. What prompted you to move?
Well, music, number one, it really is Music City. 75% of all music done in the United States, regardless of the genre, is done in Nashville. There's such great pickers there. And I visited there for the first time probably about 10 years ago and just kept coming back and really fell in love with the place. And that's where I wanted to be.
Yeah, it's great. Ronnie Dunn's one of my best friends, and he lives there, Brooks and Dunn fame.
Yeah.
I talk to Ronnie every week.
There's not a cynicism there, that or kind of jadedness that I think happens with a lot of artists, whether it be actors or musicians or whatever. People there, they still like just to get together on the porch or in each other's homes and just play.
Yeah.
It's not something just do for work. It's something they do to express joy.
Yeah, it's a different vibe than on either coast. No question about it. I feel the same way about Dallas. It's very different than either coast, certainly different than Hollywood.
Right.
There's a lot of good things about both coasts, but there's a different vibe in the middle of the country.
Right.
So I can't wait to talk about a lot of different things, but I got to just jump in and talk about Reagan. This is an amazing project. How'd this come about for you?
Out of the blue. It really did. I did a movie called Soul Surfer, and Bethany's brother, who kind of became my Hawaiian agent, Bethany Hamilton, who the movie was about, told me that there was some, group of people that were, looking to talk to me about playing Reagan. And so I found Mark, and we had a meeting, Mark Joseph, and they asked me to do the role. And I did not see myself as Reagan. I didn't think I looked like him. Of course, his voice is so distinctive, and it was fear that was going up and down my spine, to tell you the truth, because he's like Muhammad Ali. Everybody in the world knows what he looks like. I didn't want to do an impersonation. And so I took a lot of time to think about it. And we're both actors. We're both, I think, have sunny dispositions naturally. And but I went to the ranch, the Reagan Ranch, which is not open to the public. And that's what made my mind up, because you go up 5 miles of the worst road in California to get to this place. That's the Queen had to come up that road to visit him.
Can you imagine?
And you come out to the gate, and it opens up, on top of that mountain there. And I realized that Reagan was a humble man. And he wasn't a rich man. And I could feel him there in that place, just who he was. The house that they had is maybe 1,100 square feet. That was, the Western White House.
Yeah.
And the first thing you see when you open the door is this huge bookcase of every book that he ever had, going back to when he was 9 years old. But the house is, like I said, 1,100 square feet. They had a king-size bed, but it was 2 single beds that were zip tied together.
Seriously?
Yeah. They left that place just as they left it. You expect that he and Nancy to come back at any moment. The clothes are in the closet. The Liberty Bell shower head is there. There's a basket with 3 channel changers in it that go kaprong, kaprong, and a note from Nancy on how to get the TV to work, and you can really feel it. So I said yes.
You said you had to really think about it. Why? I would think, knowing you and knowing your values and sensibilities, I would have thought you would have jumped at that.
Well, it was, like I said, he's like Muhammad Ali. He's so famous, and it was fear, basically, and when I have that tingle of fear, it usually means that I should do that, because it takes me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And so I realized it was a deep dive, because once I said yes, it was, I think, about 1.5 years, 2 years before we actually started shooting.
When you got into that role, how did you do it? Because he is bigger than life. I mean, people still, they talk about Reagan Republicans.
Right.
He's kind of the iconic image of that party, and you still talk about Reaganomics. You still talk about so many things that surrounded him, his communication ability, his simple 2-3 line graphs. I mean, his ability to connect.
Yeah. It's just like you look up president in the dictionary, and there's Reagan, and, he would exemplify to me the 20th century, just like Lincoln would the 19th in Washington, really. And I do think he was my favorite president. I voted for him. And in fact, I voted for him in 1980, and I was living in L.A., and my roommate, I came home, and he said, "Who'd you vote for?" I said, "Reagan." He said, "You were kicked out of the hippies."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Was there something that you had to do to make that transformation?
Yeah, I really had just to immerse myself. I didn't want to do an impersonation, so just I just kind of tried it out on my own. There's miles and miles and miles of videotape, thank goodness, on YouTube. That really fantastic. It's great for actors, about the way he walked and why did he walk that way, the way that he walked, why, his voice. He also, I come to find out that he had a crooked smile.
Yeah.
And I think it had to be with some sort of maybe nerve damage or something that had happened, some kind of trauma that it happened young or whatever. But, that's just the little things like that kind of, that's the way I work, is kind of from the outside in. And also talking to a lot of people who knew him, what I found really fascinating is almost to a person, they would say there was a part of him that was unknowable. As the great communicator that he was, there was a private place in him that you couldn't reach. And I think maybe the closest one who came to that would probably be Nancy. But even she has been heard to say the same thing.
Hey, it's Dr. Phil here. You know I bought my first gold coin over 25 years ago. I did it to protect my family and our financial future. Now, back then, we were living in uncertain times, and the national debt was growing larger every day. And it is similar today. Higher taxes, government debt, and an unstable economy. It's more important than ever to buy gold and silver. Now, like you, I cherish my faith, my family, and my financial freedom. That's why I recommend you get the Wealth Protection Kit from Goldco, the top-rated precious metals company in the entire country. It shows you how to diversify and protect your retirement savings. Thankfully, with Goldco, you get the peace of mind that thousands of their customers have protected their money with gold and silver. They are A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau and have earned over 6,000 five-star reviews. Now, right now, you could qualify for up to 10% instant match in bonus silver while supplies last. So call Goldco at 855-969-GOLD to learn more. That's 855-969-GOLD. Across this great country, you've told me about the crossroads we're facing. That's why I wrote We've Got Issues, How You Can Stand Strong for America's Soul and Sanity. This book isn't just a conversation starter, it is a roadmap for embracing our core values when they're needed most. We're talking about real strategies for real people dealing with real issues. From navigating the complexities of today's polarized world to fortifying our families. We've Got Issues isn't just my call to action, it's our call to action. So let's turn the tide together. I invite you to come home to our core values and re-embrace the American ideals of self-determination and self-governance. Because when you do, you're going to learn actions that you can take, principles that you can embrace, fortify your family, to fortify your community, and make a difference in this world. Reading this book is going to change your life the day you start reading it. It's going to cause you to say, I am not a victim. I can make changes. Get your copy of We've Got Issues by me, Dr. Phil, wherever books are sold. So how important is the relationship between he and Nancy in this movie? We'll talk about how it's told through the voice of a former KGB agent in a minute, but let's talk about the relationship between he and Nancy in this movie.
I think outside of his personal relationship with Jesus, that Nancy was the most important relationship in his life, along with his mother as well. But Nancy really got to know him probably better than anybody. And I think that there would not have been a President Ronald Reagan without Nancy. And that's not to say that, she pulled the strings or whatever, but it's a testimony to what a really great, solid relationship can do and how it can work in your life to the benefit, to the uplifting to both. And they had an amazing marriage and an incredible love story. He wrote her a love note like every day.
Yeah,
I'm talking about for 50 years.
Yeah,
and they still had that that thing that everybody thinks you should have in your relationship.
You know, I didn't have the privilege of knowing him, but I did have the privilege of knowing Nancy in the later years. I'm proud to say she was a big fan of the Dr. Phil show. She watched it religiously and knew every detail about shows. We would go to dinner at Larry King's house, and he always said she held him hostage. She would come to dinner, but only if Robin and I would come. If we couldn't come, she would not come. And so he was always saying, you guys have to come. And she would argue with me about Dr. Phil shows. And I would have just done a show that had aired, and, you know, I'd have a book 250 pages thick about the guests, know every detail. She would dispute some detail that I had in writing, and I'd push back a little bit. And then pretty soon I realized, you're not going to win this.
Yeah.
So I just say, yes, Nancy, you're right.
Yeah. Don't argue with the boss. Right.
No. She'd give her opinion about what I should have said instead of what I said.
Right. Well, I do that for myself every day.
Yeah.
What I should have said. Their love story is really at the center of this film.
Well, she told me that even in the later years when, you know, he was suffering from the cognitive decline, she said the core of his personality still would shine through, even when he didn't know her, that he was still the consummate gentleman. That he would still just ask after her, ma'am, get you a chair, would you have a seat, please?
That's who he was.
That's absolutely who he genuinely was to the core of his soul. There was nothing. He wasn't trying to be polite. He wasn't trying to put on anything. It's just who he was, even though he didn't know who she was.
That's what shone through, I think, to everyone. I mean, that's why, you know, he had Reagan Democrats, and he was, because you could feel who he was, I think, at the core. Certainly there were those, you know, who or still to this day, you know, don't want to be a part. Don't want to be a part of the Reagan story. Don't want to, you know, still the same issues keep coming. He was a warmonger. He was this. And this is not like a love letter to Reagan either. You know, there's a few things that, you know, I vehemently disagreed with him on at the time. For one thing, the way he handled AIDS, which I think could have been, in retrospect, done better. Mm-hmm. Some of the negotiations with Gorbachev, which, you know, he proved me wrong about that, in Iceland, when he walked out of that meeting, and I thought, oh my gosh, he's acting like an old codger. But then that was the impetus of what got the Soviets to cave. He always wanted, this is the other thing that's at the core of the film, is the fight of the Cold War and the fighting against communism. He was the very first leader that we had that really said no to the Soviets.
Yeah.
Up until then, it had been appeasement in one form or another, or just let's go along and get along. And Reagan came along and said, this story is we win, they lose. And that's what happened. And I think it took like a Cold Warrior to win the Cold War.
Yeah.
And things would have been living in a different world, I truly believe, if it hadn't been for him.
We have a trailer for the movie, and for those that are listening, this is so compelling that even if you're not able to watch, I'll ask you to go to YouTube and watch the extended trailer. For those of you that are watching this right now, you'll see it. But if you can't see this right now, the dialogue explains itself. It paints the picture.
I will be frank with you that as a citizen, I would not like to see any political party outlawed on the basis of its ideology, because I still believe, Mr. Chairman, that democracy can handle it.
I was a brand new KGB officer, given my first intelligence assignment, a certain actor and union leader.
Dutch, there's a purpose for your life.
You can run from a bully for so long, but after a while, you're gonna have to stand up to him.
It's my boy!
There's about to be another war right here in Hollywood. The commies on one side, the mob on the other. And you're right in the middle, son.
If you put as much work into your career as you do making your speeches, you'd have an Oscar by now.
Hello, I'm Nancy Davis.
Hello, Nancy Davis. I'm Ron Reagan.
I'm curious, Ron. What would you say is the issue of our time?
No question about it. Communism and the Soviet Union.
Get in the game. Run for office.
It's you!
I'm running for governor, and I would like your vote.
I forgot your name.
Do his initials help, RR?
Honey, Roy Rogers is here! And he's running for governor!
Ronnie, remember when we met? You told me that you wanted to make a difference in this world. You know what you have to do.
Governor Reagan again, typically, is against such a proposal.
There you go again.
But he was not afraid to take us on.
There's nothing a retired governor can do about the Soviets, but a president.
Now he can do a thing or two.
Welcome to your life.
I was a lifeguard on a river.
There's no turning back.
And I learned how to read the currents. Not just the ones on the surface, but also the ones deep underneath the water. I am about to start the biggest war of this century, and I'm not gonna fire a single shot.
You're gonna blow up 8 years of diplomacy.
Well, if you think that got their undies in a wad, you just wait.
What did the president know, and when did he know it?
What would you have me do?
I want you to fight!
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Wants to rule the world.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
What do you think when you watch it?
I feel that the movie, because you read a script and then you see it, and it's like it's kind of like you get to be a fly on the wall. So all these things that events that happened behind the scenes that I always wanted to see myself. What Reagan, the way he grew up, and inside the White House, but. I'm proud of the film. I really am. We vetted everything with those that were close to him to make sure that we got it as right as we possibly could without embellishment or taking away from anything. And we did get to shoot at the Reagan Ranch, in fact, where all these things actually happened. It was an amazing experience. It really was.
I have to say, this is kind of the yardstick I use, and I've said this about you always, back to the Big Easy. I never catch you acting.
Well, it's a compliment. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's my yardstick. I don't know how everybody else does
I've caught myself many times doing that.
Yeah, I never have. And in watching this,
first take, I always tell the director, too big, right? Okay.
Yeah, but you dial it in.
You.
Now, this is told through the voice of a former KGB agent.
Mm-hmm.
Why were they so focused on Reagan 5 years before he ever really came on the scene? How did they identify him? Why were they so dialed into him?
I think they really identified him going way back into the 40s and 50s when he became, he was vice president of the Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah.
And then became president as well. And lo and behold, it wasn't just a conspiracy theory like many purported, but the Soviet Union was infiltrating our unions and the entertainment industry to take over. By taking over the unions, you control a lot of things, and they were sending people into union meetings and things like using those same sort of Marxist things, putting people in a diamond shape at the corners and causing a ruckus and to disruption. And Reagan fought him every step of the way. I mean, even physically. And he hated communism. He hated what it did to nations and peoples, and the lie of the communist system.
So their focus on him early was his resistance to them infiltrating Hollywood.
Yeah.
They had no idea that he was going to, or do you think they did, that he had bigger things in his future?
Well, they kept lists on everybody, as well as our government kept records on everybody. There were a lot of the McCarthy hearings, which I myself kind of look upon as kind of a disgrace, or how far it can go the other way. Like, as far as the red baiting and that went on. Reagan actually went and testified himself, before the committee. I think that's in the trailer. In fact, that ruined quite a number of lives. But there was actual activity going on, and in the end, I think it went too far with McCarthyism. To that famous quote, "At long last, you have no shame."
Yeah.
I think it was Kefauver or somebody asked McCarthy, but they kept tabs on him because he was politically active, and as governor of California, they were interested in that too. I mean, and then when he became president, here was a guy that was going to be tough to deal with. Like I said, America had practiced appeasement and agreements. We had détente, we had SALT, we had, we'd gone through the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Jimmy Carter, who I voted for, by the way, the first time that he was up, he was a really good man, and I thought he did an incredible job with the Middle East, with Egypt and Israel, but it seemed to be appeasement with the Russians. He gave away the B-1 bomber. He gave away quite a number of things without getting anything in return. And I think that the Soviets lost respect with that and felt they could run all over him, and built their military up. And there was a lot going on in Africa back, these proxy wars in the Central America as well. And Reagan came along, and man, oh man, they didn't know what hit him. He was the first one to say no.
Do you think there's still Reagan effect on where we are today?
I believe there's an example there of about where we are today, about how to negotiate with other powers, and to also recognize that there are bad actors out there who don't wish us well. America is a country, we want to get along with everybody, and we are a shining example to the rest of the world. And I think that's the way Americans see themselves. But I think there's a naivete, I think, sometimes in that it's going to be reciprocated on the other side. And, other countries, their leaders, they've come up a certain way. They have different histories just imagine like Russia's history. I can understand why the Soviet Union, why it was the way it was, given its history, which is very brutal. Yeah. So they live by different rules. So I think, he's a great example of that. Just like Hitler was an example of what happens when you practice appeasement. They get entitled to take more.
This is going to come out, 9 weeks before the election?
I think so. And we were making this movie, and I so did not want it to come out in an election year. And I think it did a lot of praying over that, but I think God had different ideas about it, I guess. But here we are. Because it's, I didn't want the movie to be a political statement, which I still don't think that it is. That Reagan was a Democrat before he was a Republican, by the way. And, but that's just the way it is. And so that's what was supposed to happen.
Yeah. Well, you got some heavy hitters in this movie. I mean, Mark Joseph, the movies that they've been involved in, X-Men, Hocus Pocus, Planet of the Apes, Rocky, John Avildsen was saying that Rocky was not a story about boxing. Boxing was simply Rocky's job. And similarly, the Reagan film is not a film about politics, but the story of a man who happens to be in politics. And it feels that way. Is that how you felt doing it?
Oh, yeah. I really believe that, too. Like, for instance, sports movies, I'll just take one of mine, like The Rookie is not about baseball.
Right.
Because I can watch that on television.
Yeah.
It's about second chances in life, which everybody can relate to. And Reagan is not about politics. It's about us. And, I think it's like to be determined, that could mean a lot of things to different people. But you have to relate with it. It can't just be, otherwise, just go to YouTube and you can see all the history of what happened. And this is not a history lesson. It's about, I think for those born before 1985, it'll be a remembrance of what this country was and what it still can be. And for those born after, it'll be what this country could be. And I think it's inspiring.
I'm glad it's coming out in an election year. I know you wished it wasn't, but I think it's a wake-up call.
I've gotten to acceptance on that one. But it's in a way, I think it's a calling to our higher angels about what it is to be of service. And, just even if that great things happen to common people.
Yeah, I think it's a very relatable story. I mean, I was so glad to see just even the parts about when he was younger and having to deal with bullies. It seems like it's one of those stories where everything he ever did prepared him for what he would ultimately do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not true of everybody. But each thing he went through seemed to be a lesson for what he would have to do on the international stage, the national stage and the international stage.
There's a purpose out there, and, I would call it God's purpose. People would call it a thing. There's a God, unto our lives that I think that we need to find or feel compelled to find, and sometimes do not find. But I think with Reagan, I look back on his life, and you're right about that. It did seem that so many things were leading him to that. His movie career, for one thing, one thing I felt, and I identify with him, I think he felt a failed actor. He never really got his chance. He was B movies. That's what we're giving it.
Yeah.
The slot that he would have taken iconically would have been John Wayne. But, that slot was taken by John Wayne. And, Warner, who he was very close to, but never really got him the chance. He married Jane Wyman, which is his first wife. And his career was at the end of his career. And next thing you know, she wins an Academy Award. And, to live in relief of her, she really kind of like transcended him. He was in her shade, and he went from that to doing soap ads on TV. He had really kind of a Vegas act that was kind of slapstick. I think he wasn't really all that proud of. He went through, struggled.
Yeah.
really some struggle until he along came GE, and I think that was the thing that propelled him towards getting into politics.
Yeah, he clearly evolved and I guess got in touch with a deeper sense of who he was, which leads me to a question. I've known you a long time. We haven't known each other all that well, but we've known each other a long time, always been friendly, gotten along well. Have you evolved as you've gotten older? You're over 40 now.
Yeah. I think I'm almost not times 2 over 40, but I'm 70 now. Yeah. Of course, luckily I feel like I have evolved, Evolvement comes, I think, with struggle and not so comfortable things happening to you, and a lot of things that I think evolvement comes out of mistakes a lot. But I'm in a place where the best place I've ever been in life, I think.
Do you think you've gotten more spiritual, more in touch with that side of yourself?
Yeah, I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Yeah, that has grown. That's been going on for quite a while. But I think as maybe too, as you get older and if you self-examine, that things don't bother me as like they used to. You let a lot of things go that used to be like so important to me and that were unnecessary. About being worried about what the world thinks of you or trying to achieve something in life. I like acting. I don't do this for like awards, and says the guy who never won an Academy Award. But I do it because I love it, and I'm really at this point with all my experience, I'm having more fun at it than I ever had because I'm doing things that I want to do.
Yeah, but your career is storied. I mean, you have to agree you've had an amazing career.
My autobiography is going to be called My Lucky Life because it's been really amazing. And I have a beautiful relationship with such a beautiful, wonderful woman now that I've really finding out every day about what love is. And I don't know why it came along at this time of my life, but it did. And I'm so grateful for it. It just makes the sunshine every day.
Yeah. How about the music in your life? You're loving doing that.
Yeah, I'm having fun. I put out a gospel record last year. In fact, it was #1 when it came out. And it's called Fallen. It's a gospel record for sinners. And I called it that because I wanted to have the biggest possible audience I could get.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So, it's kind of, I guess, in the end, it's my spiritual journey. It's like half songs I grew up with in the Baptist church, and the other half are songs that I wrote, during different times of my life.
Yeah. We opened with one of those songs at the beginning. When did you start singing?
Very early. I was into music. In fact, really, I wanted to be a musician before I wanted to be an actor. Yeah, I grew up with Elvis, Hank Williams, and the Beatles.
Yeah.
And that's, what I wanted to be besides being a veterinarian. But the veterinarian went out the window when I was a veterinarian assistant. We went out to do a castration on a horse. That ended that.
You said that's it?
Yeah, that was it.
That's one trial learning?
Yeah, they didn't give him enough anesthetic. But I was going to be a musician, but I found acting with teacher Mr. Cecil Pickett, who my brother also took from. He was fantastic. He opened up a world to me, and that was the question, what makes people tick? And I've been fascinated with that ever since.
Yeah, you always immerse yourself in the roles, and I'm not surprised to see you play Reagan. It's really interesting how you get the nuances in, and I think this is going to be a game changer. I think it's going to make people think. That's why I say I'm glad it came out in an election year. And I found a great contrast because there are scenes in there where he's dealing with protesters on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so different than what happens today.
Oh, it is so different. When he went in there dealt with the faculty, he's really mad. I mean, you see that. And then the way he dealt with the students afterwards, he had a real affinity for them at the same time. And it's amazing to me that it reminds me of 1979. The same elements that were going on in the world remind me of that, late 70s time that seemed to conspire and mirror the times of today.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let's look at when he's dealing with the faculty when he was so upset, because you don't often see him that way.
Yeah.
Let's look at that clip.
Hear you speak openly about this to the state of California.
Well, what do you think I'm doing here?
If you would come out against the police escalation, they might listen.
When did you ever stand up in front of your students and beg them not to do this? They told you that they were going to destroy the university if you sought to go ahead with this construction.
But they offered to negotiate.
Negotiate what? All this happened, Professor, the very first time that some of you who are old enough to know better let students think that they had the right to choose which laws they were going to obey as long as it was done in the name of social protest. I've had it. I'm calling in the National Guard.
Governor Reagan! Make love, not war!
From the looks of him, he can't do either right now.
Bill's gonna meet us inside.
Let's lead the way.
He definitely had a sense of humor about it all.
He had that ability to connect with people. He just did.
He really did. Reagan was, back in the day, like especially to my generation, the boomers, they either loved him or you hated him. It was like the way you either got along with your dad or you didn't get along with your dad. He was everybody's dad. And I think that's still pervasive today. There's dad issues that we had with him, or that we loved.
But that is how America saw him. I mean, clearly they did. And he was the dad, and he didn't care if he wasn't trying to be cool. He was just the dad.
Right.
And God, that was needed at the time.
Yeah, it was.
It was so needed.
We could use a little bit of that.
Could we
today?
not?
Some grown-ups in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. On both sides, too.
Did you ever think that we would see such an absence of statesmanship as we're seeing now, calling people names and all of that?
Cuckoo.
Yeah. It's just gone over the high side.
Well, I get it with are the American people the reflection of the president or the other way around? Somebody said that America gets the president it deserves sometimes about the state of where we are. And well, I don't know, we long for this or that, but there's no going back. Excuse our progress, but there's, you can complain all you want about change, but that's not going to stop it. And I think the thing to do is to go with it and make the best that you can do. Be an example yourself. Starts with each of us. It's all local.
Yeah, I always say it gets to the point where you decide what you're going to do with it. Politics are local, politics are personal. At some point, everybody decides what's in this for me and my family?
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts from there. And I don't know politics. I don't want to know politics.
I don't either.
I just think it's all cultural.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it starts. That's where it ends. It's going to be interesting. I did an interview with RFK Jr. a few days ago, and he has some interesting theories about things.
Mm-hmm.
I've interviewed Trump, and I have a request in to interview Biden. And I'm not talking to him about policies. I'm talking to him about the culture and America and what this is going to do to society and all that.
It's so true. It is about cultural. It's about who we are, about how we see ourselves, and how we deal with one another. And how did we get here? They're so divided.
I never thought in my lifetime I would see and hear on college campuses what I'm seeing, hearing now with all this anti-Semitism. And we're not teaching critical thinking. I see these posters, Gays for Gaza. Seriously?
Yeah.
Why don't you walk that banner into the Gaza Strip and see how far
how
you
long
get?
it lasts. I don't know. Are they teaching history?
Well, they're teaching their history that
Yeah.
they made up,
Yeah.
but they're not teaching history. I don't understand. They're teaching equal outcome, not equal opportunity. They're teaching equal outcome. I don't get that. I mean, if you can sit home in a beanbag and eat Cheetos all day and you get the same outcome as a guy that's working 14 hours a day, that doesn't work. We've proven that.
Right.
We got hundreds of thousands of corpses to prove that doesn't
Right.
work. But
Yeah.
yet that's what they're teaching.
Doesn't make sense. It seems like it'd be a curiosity, because if we don't, I mean, the old adage of we are destined to repeat the mistakes of the past if we don't learn from them.
Well, probably the most core psychological principle known. I mean, this goes back hundreds of years. You don't reward bad behavior.
Mm.
You just don't reward bad behavior. You reward those things you want to see more of. You don't reward those things you don't want to see more of. We pay people more to stay home than to work. And then the supply chain's frozen and everybody says, what happened? What do you mean what happened? You paid people not to work. Lassie could figure
Stuff
this
just
out.
shows up. I mean, don't we have all these delivery apps? I mean, why doesn't it work?
Yeah, it's insane to me. But you shot this movie in 37 days. That's people working.
You're right. We did. It seemed like, we were shooting it during COVID too. And I think we shot like 10 days, and then someone on the set got COVID. We had to shut down for a month and, come back for it. And then we shut down for a month, but what do you do? Because everybody was under quarantine. So you can't go home. You can't go here. Yeah, so it's basically got us staying in Oklahoma. And so it seemed a lot longer than it was. And then, of course, we went to the Reagan Ranch and shot there for quite a while.
You shot in Guthrie, Oklahoma?
Guthrie, Oklahoma.
It used to be the capital.
Yes.
Yeah. At one time, that was
a lot
the
of
capital.
things happen in Guthrie, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It's got quite a history, but the whole town looks like pretty much like what Dixon, Illinois looked like. The Reagan's boyhood.
Well, this comes out August 30th. I'm telling you, this is going to be big.
Oh, your mouth to God's ears.
This is going to be
Dr.
big.
Phil.
I'm going to be all over this. I'm going to pump this like you won't believe.
Well,
I
thank
want
you.
people to see this. We need a reminder of, and everybody looks back and says, oh, the good old days. I'm not saying things were perfect at this time,
No, they
but
really weren't.
They were not. There was a lot going on, but there were some things then that it would be great to make everything old new again.
Mhm.
There are some things from that era that we would do well to look back on and say it would be good to revisit that.
Right.
I mean, really.
Yes. I mean, the movie's not a love letter. I mean, the way that Reagan didn't handle AIDS very well when it came along. I mean, there was, Iran-Contra. There's, it was like a little borderline in that. But there is no perfect life, as I think, some Eastern European gangs say, there is no perfect crime. You know, you just can't be pulled off. There's always a gremlin in there. But, you know, what was incredible about Reagan is that it was not about issues. It was about principles.
Yeah.
That's where he came from. And if you come from principles, that'll be a guide through any era, through any fad, phase, whatever you have. That'll be the guiding post.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about it. I can't wait till it hits. I promise you we'll be all over it.
Thank you.
I'm proud that you did it. I'm proud of the job you did, and I can't wait for it to come out. What's next for you?
Well, I've just finished doing a thing in Vancouver for Paramount. I'm playing a serial killer.
Yeah.
That's what you do after playing the president, I guess. And he's a real guy, the Happy Face Killer. And that'll be along probably next year. And producing my production company. We just had our first film come out, The Long Game, which is a true story. South Texas in the 50s, these kids, which is I'm really proud of. And we're moving on. We have some things in the hopper that we're looking forward to doing.
Well, you're not slowing down.
No, I'm not a human being. I'm a human doing.
Yeah.
That's basically where I operate most comfort because I like it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I can't even think about retiring, going home. Playing golf's fun until it's the only thing you have to do.
Yeah, that's right. And I think we learned a little bit about that in COVID, didn't we?
Yeah,
about
exactly.
what it's like to retire.
Yeah, that's not fun.
It's not all it cracked up to be.
Yeah, and if you're doing something you love, then
yeah,
why would you want to stop?
That's what I tell my kids. Find something you love to do and then figure out a way to get paid for it.
Yeah, exactly.
You got a third of your life figured out.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for coming. Thanks for talking to me.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
The movie is Reagan. It comes out August 30th. The album is Fallen, a gospel record for sinners. That means all of us. We started with a track from that called Fallen. It's also got Please Don't Give Up on Me, Why Me, Lord, God Gets Lonely Too. Even Amazing Grace is on there, a lot of other tracks. It's good. I've listened to every one of them with Robin. I got to say, good job.
Thank you.
Good job. I hope you do more.
Much
I'm sure you
appreciated.
will. I'm going to have links to that on drphil.com as well as Fill in the Blanks so everybody can find it. We'll be reminding you of Reagan every step of the way. So appreciate you being here. Best of luck on this and all your other projects.
As well to you.
Thanks.
God bless you, Dr.
All right,
Phil.
Thanks, man.